When the air turns crisp and the evenings grow shorter, your garden starts to whisper, "Don't forget me." The scent of fallen leaves mixes with damp earth, and every fading bloom tells a quiet story of seasons past. This isn't the end. It's the beginning of the garden's gentle rest. Fall isn't when we stop tending. It's when we start preparing. Nature is slowing down, resetting, and getting ready to bloom again. As gardeners, we join that rhythm, clearing, caring, and listening. The soil still remembers your touch, and the seeds beneath still dream. So pull on your sweater, step outside, and let's keep growing through fall and beyond. Meet Edna, the garden whisperer of Maple Street. Every neighborhood has that one soul who never truly lets the seasons end. On Maple Street, that's Edna Parker, 78. With silver hair that glows like morning, mist and a laugh that sounds like wind, chimes on a calm day. To her, the garden isn't a chore. It's a lifelong conversation. She says every season speaks a different language. Spring chatters, summer sings, winter hums, but fall whispers. When most of her neighbors start tucking away rakes and stacking flower pots in the shed, Edna is still out there, sweater sleeves rolled up, humming to herself, kneeling by her marigolds. Fall, she says, is my quiet growing season. It's when I teach my garden how to rest. Her garden isn't perfect. It's not the kind you'd find in glossy magazines, no marble, fountains, or neatly lined beds. But there's something deeper there, a story, a warmth, a memory tucked behind every leaf. The gate creaks when you push it open, and you can almost smell time itself, damp soil, faded blooms, and the faint sweetness of drying herbs hanging by her porch. Edna doesn't buy fancy frost covers. She uses yesterday's newspaper, carefully layered over her lettuce and kale. The headlines may change, she chuckles, but the paper still keeps things warm. Her seed collection lives in old cookie tins, each one labeled in shaky handwriting. Beans, 94, zinnias, mother's kind. Tomatoes, Don's favorite. Don was her husband, gone 10 years now, but she still plants his tomatoes every summer and saves the seeds each fall. Because memories, like seeds, she says, only grow if you tend them. Her hands tell stories, too, wrinkled, soil-stained, gentle. The kind of hands that can both prune a rose and comfort a neighbor. Every October, kids on Maple Street stop by to help her rake leaves. She pays them not in cash, but in wisdom, a handful of pumpkin seeds, a tale about patience, and a promise that spring always keeps its word. Edna believes the secret to gardening, and maybe to life, is never giving up on what looks finished. The garden may look tired, she says, but that's just nature breathing out. She knows that under the fallen leaves, life is rearranging itself, quietly preparing for something beautiful. In her shed, part tool room, part time capsule, hangs a wooden sign her late husband carved. Keep growing, no matter the season. And that's what she does. Edna is the quiet reminder that tending a garden isn't about chasing perfection, it's about showing up, even when the blooms fade. It's about trust. Trust that the earth remembers kindness, that seeds remember light, that we, too, can rest without giving up. Her story invites every gardener, especially those who think their best seasons are behind them, to see fall not as a farewell, but as a gentle beginning. Because when the chill sets in and the leaves begin to fall, Edna doesn't say goodbye. Hack number 1, mulch magic for fall. There's a certain kind of music in the sound of fallen leaves, the soft crunch under your boots, the rustle as the wind carries them down. For most folks, that sound means it's time to grab a rake and fill a dozen trash bags. But for gardeners like Edna, and maybe you, those golden leaves aren't a mess to clean up. They're a gift from nature herself. People pay good money for mulch, Edna says with a laugh, brushing a curl of silver hair from her face. And here it falls right into our yards for free. She's right. Every autumn, trees shed their leaves not as waste, but as nourishment. Beneath those layers of color lies one of the simplest, most powerful garden hacks there is, mulching with leaves. Here's why it's magic. When you spread a blanket of shredded leaves over your garden beds, you're giving your soil a cozy quilt for winter. The leaves keep roots warm during cold snaps, protect tender perennials from frost, and hold in the precious moisture that dry winter air tries to steal away. Come spring, that same layer will have softened, breaking down into rich, crumbly compost, nature's homemade fertilizer. It's a cycle as old as the forest. Walk through any woodland, and you'll notice something. Nobody's out there raking. The forest floor is alive with a soft, spongy layer of decaying leaves. That's the secret behind those deep, dark forest soils. Constant recycling. No waste, no plastic bags needed. So here's how to do it at home, Edna style. Step 1. Rake your fallen leaves into piles, or better yet, run them over with a lawn mower to shred them. Smaller pieces decompose faster and stay put in the wind. Step 2. Spread the shredded leaves around the base of trees, shrubs, and garden beds, about 2 to 3 inches thick. Step 3. Avoid piling them too close to stems or trunks. Give plants a little breathing room. Step 4. Sit back, sip your tea, and let the garden do the rest. By springtime, you'll find your soil soft, dark, and full of life, all without lifting more than a rake and a smile. Edna has a saying, mulch today, thank yourself in April. She never wastes a leaf, even the stubborn ones that cling to her gutters or get stuck under her hydrangeas end up in the compost heap. To her, fall cleanup isn't about tidying. It's about tucking the earth in for a good night's sleep. And here's a little secret she swears by. If you have too many leaves, pile them in a corner and let them rest through winter. By next fall, you'll have leaf mold, Gardner's gold, perfect for enriching potting soil or boosting your vegetable beds. There's something beautifully simple about turning what others throw away into something life-giving. It's a reminder that even decay has purpose, that what looks like an ending can feed the next beginning. So before you bag up those leaves, take a moment to listen. The garden might be whispering, leave them be. Hack number 2, the secret of winter composting. When the frost settles on the garden beds and the breath in the air turns visible, most gardeners assume composting season is over. The bins get closed, the scraps get tossed, and the soil goes silent. But not for Edna. On Maple Street, even in January, a little curl of steam still rises from the back corner of her yard, a quiet sign that life hasn't stopped working. Cold doesn't mean dead, Edna says, patting her compost pile like an old friend. It just means slow, and slow is fine. Nature knows how to wait. That's her secret. She never lets her compost sleep. While others let their piles freeze solid, Edna layers hers like a homemade quilt. A sprinkle of kitchen scraps, a handful of dry leaves, and a soft blanket of straw or cardboard on top to keep the warmth in. It's simple, gentle, and surprisingly powerful. Here's how she does it. Start with a base layer. Even in winter, you need a good balance of greens, like vegetable scraps, coffee grounds or crushed eggshells, and browns, like dry leaves, shredded paper, or straw. The browns help trap air pockets that insulate and prevent odors. Layer like lasagna. Every time Edna empties her kitchen pail, she covers the scraps with a layer of dry leaves or shredded cardboard. The trick, she says, is to tuck them in, like you would a baby on a cold night. Trap the heat. Cold slows decomposition, but it doesn't stop it. By adding a top layer of straw, leaf mold, or even an old rug, you create a natural thermal blanket. This keeps the microbes cozy and active longer. Add moisture sparingly. Winter air is dry, but snow and rain can oversaturate the pile. Edna pokes small holes in cardboard to let the pile breathe without getting soggy. Too wet, she says, and you'll smell regret. Patience is power. Things may move slowly, but every week, those tiny organisms keep working, even under frost. Come spring, you'll find a pile rich, dark, and nearly ready to feed your beds. Edna likes to say composting is a lot like faith. You may not see it happening, but something good is growing beneath the surface. Each apple core, each crumbled leaf, is a quiet promise that next season will have everything it needs to flourish. Sometimes, on the coldest mornings, she stands by her compost heap with a cup of tea, watching steam drift upward like a prayer. You can't rush nature, she murmurs, but you can make it comfortable while it waits. And that's the beauty of winter composting. It reminds us that progress doesn't always look lively. Some of the best work happens unseen, slow and steady beneath the frost. So don't close your compost bin this winter. Keep layering, keep trusting, and let the earth take its time. Because even when it looks still, your garden's heartbeat never truly stops. Hack number 3, the garlic trick for spring success. There's something beautifully Poetic about planting garlic in the fall, tucking tiny cloves into cold earth, just as everything else begins to fade. To the untrained eye, it looks like backward timing. Why plant when winter's knocking at the door? But seasoned gardeners like Edna know the secret. Some of the best things in life start growing in silence, beneath the frost, long before anyone can see them. Every October, when the last marigolds droop and the pumpkins line her porch, Edna brings out a small wicker basket filled with garlic bulbs. "It's hope," she says, splitting one open with her thumb. "You plant it now, and it reminds you, even in the dark, something good is working its way up." Here's the trick. Garlic loves the cold. When you plant it in fall, just before the ground freezes, the cloves settle in and spend the winter quietly establishing roots. They don't sprout much, but they prepare, drawing strength from the soil, storing energy, and waiting for the first kiss of spring warmth. When the rest of the garden is still rubbing its sleepy eyes, garlic shoots rise up, green, crisp, and full of life. Edna treats it like a ritual. Pick the perfect spot. She chooses a sunny, well-drained bed, one that gets plenty of morning light come spring. Break apart the bulbs. Each clove becomes its own future bulb, planted pointy end up, about 2 inches deep and 6 inches apart. Tuck them in. She covers them with a blanket of mulch or straw, just enough to keep them warm, not smothered. Then she waits. No watering, no fussing, just patience and quiet trust. Through the cold months, the cloves rest. Beneath snow, frost, and silence, they're growing, slowly, faithfully. By late spring, Edna's rows are filled with green stalks waving like flags of triumph. "See?" she smiles, brushing dirt from her gloves. Hope always knows when to wake up. Garlic is one of the easiest crops to overwinter. But more than that, it's a teacher. It reminds us that life doesn't always bloom on schedule. Sometimes the most important work happens underground, in stillness, in waiting, in faith. Edna often says planting garlic is her yearly thank you to the earth. It's her promise that even when the world slows down, she'll keep sowing for tomorrow. "You plant it now," she says, "and by the time the robins return, you're already ahead." There's a kind of comfort in that, knowing that as winter unfolds, something good is quietly taking shape. Maybe that's the real secret of fall gardening, planting not just for food, but for hope. So, before the frost sets in, grab a bulb of garlic. Break it open, breathe in that sharp, earthy scent, and plant a few cloves. When spring comes, and you see those green shoots pushing through the soil, you'll smile, because you'll know you planted your hope early, and it paid off. Hack number 4, protecting tools and treasures. There's a certain peace that comes with the end of a gardening season. A quiet satisfaction in knowing the soil has been tended, the plants cared for, and the harvest gathered. But before Edna ever calls it a year, she takes time for one last ritual, caring for the tools that carried her through. "Every spade, every trowel has a story," she says, her voice soft but sure. "They've worked beside me all year. The least I can do is thank them." On a crisp November afternoon, you'll find her in her little shed, sunlight pouring through dusty glass panes. A small radio hums old swing tunes as she lines her tools on the workbench, pruners dulled from trimming roses, a hoe nicked from stubborn roots, and her favorite trowel with a wooden handle worn smooth from decades of use. She doesn't see rust or dirt. She sees partnership. With slow, careful hands, she wipes each blade clean of soil and sap. A bit of sandpaper for the rough edges, a few drops of oil on the hinges, and then the shine returns. She rubs linseed oil into wooden handles until they glow warm like honey. It's not just maintenance, it's gratitude. "This little trowel helped me plant my first zinnias after dawn. Past," she murmurs. "It's seen more tears than rain some years. But it's still here, still helping me grow." That's the secret behind. Hack number 4, protecting tools and treasures. It's not only about preserving metal and wood, but about honoring what helps us build beauty. A cared-for tool lasts longer, works better, and feels like an extension of your hand. Here's Edna's simple ritual. Clean, scrub off all dirt using warm water and a stiff brush. For sticky sap, a bit of vinegar works wonders. Sharpen, give edges a quick touch with a sharpening stone or fine file. Sharp tools are safer and smoother to use. Oil, lightly coat metal parts with vegetable or mineral oil to prevent rust. For wooden handles, rub in linseed oil and let it soak overnight. Wrap and rest. Store tools in a dry place. Or wrap them in old cloth or newspaper to keep moisture away during winter's dampness. When she's done, Edna stands back, looking over her tools lined up neatly, shining, ready, resting. They've earned their nap, she says with a satisfied nod. It's a beautiful reminder. The way we treat our tools mirrors how we treat the things and people that serve us. Stewardship isn't just about saving things. It's about gratitude in motion. When we take time to care for what we already have, we remind ourselves that abundance doesn't always come from getting more. Sometimes it comes from honoring what's already in our hands. As the shed door closes and the light fades, Edna hangs her gloves on a nail, gives her trowel one last glance, and smiles. "See you next spring," she whispers. Because caring for her tools isn't just about gardening. It's her way of saying thank you to the year that's been, and to the life that keeps on giving. Hack number 5. Turning pots into frost shields. The first frost always sneaks in like an uninvited guest, quiet, glittering, and a little cruel. One morning, the air smells sharper. The grass glistens white, and the garden wears a thin coat of silver. For many gardeners, that first frost feels like a goodbye. But not for Edna. Before dawn, she's already outside in her robe and wool hat, breath misting in the chill. With slow, practiced movements, she bends down among her herbs, turning over empty flower pots, one by one, to cover the tender green she's not ready to lose. "Frost doesn't scare me," she chuckles. "It just keeps me on my toes." This is hack number 5, turning pots into frost shields. Simple, clever, and straight from the kind of wisdom you only learn by loving a garden. Through many winters, when temperatures dip overnight, frost forms when moisture in the air settles on leaves and freezes, damaging soft tissue and cutting short what could have been a few more weeks of life. But a clay pot, flipped upside down, becomes a miniature shelter, trapping a pocket of warmth from the soil and keeping frost from touching the leaves. It's like tucking your plants under a dome of safety. Here's how Edna does it. Watch the forecast. The night before frost is predicted, she walks through her garden with a flashlight and a basket of empty pots. Choose wisely. She covers small herbs, lettuce patches, and young greens, anything still tender or new. Flip an anchor. She places each pot upside down over the plants and tucks the edges, with mulch or a small stone to keep it from blowing away. Morning ritual. Once the sun rises and the frost melts, she lifts the pots to let her plants breathe again. "They don't like to sleep in too long," she says with a wink. The beauty of this hack is in its simplicity. No fancy equipment, no expensive frost blankets, just old pots doing double duty. It's resourceful, frugal, and deeply satisfying. Edna says her mother taught her this trick during the lean years after the war. "We couldn't afford to lose a single plant," she recalls. "So we used what we had: pots, bowls, even old tin cans. You'd be amazed what can save a sprig of thyme from a cold night." And that's the heart of it, the quiet genius of ordinary wisdom. In a world that moves fast, these small, timeless tricks connect us to generations past, people who learned to work with nature, not against it. Each fall, when the frost returns, Edna sees more than cold. She sees the rhythm of care, of protecting what's fragile, of finding warmth in the simplest acts. "You can't stop the frost," she says, "but you can make sure it finds you ready." Maybe that's why her garden always feels alive, even in November. It's tended by hands that remember, tools that shine, and tricks that work, not because they're modern, but because they're mindful. The garden never really sleeps. As autumn deepens and the last golden leaves drift to the ground, Edna's garden grows quiet. The air feels still, the soil cool, and the sky carries that soft silver hue that only October can paint. To most, it looks like the end, a garden closing its eyes for winter's long rest. But Edna knows better. She stands by her gate at dusk, wrapped in her wool shawl, watching the breath of the earth rise like mist. "The garden never really sleeps," she whispers, smiling. "It just dreams beneath the frost." In her heart, she knows that beneath every patch of soil, something is stirring, tiny roots stretching, seeds storing strength, earthworms working unseen. The garden's lullaby isn't silence. It's the hum of life preparing for another beginning. Every leaf that falls becomes food for the next bloom. Every tool she's cleaned and oiled waits patiently for spring's first call. Even the garlic cloves resting underground are quietly crafting tomorrow's harvest. Everything has purpose. Everything remembers. That's the secret gardeners like Edna carry, the knowledge that endings aren't really endings at all. They're just pauses in the rhythm of growth. The soil rests, the gardener reflects, and together, they dream of what's next. So this fall, don't say goodbye to your garden. Don't mourn the fading blooms or the bare branches. Instead, walk among them with gratitude. Touch the soil, whisper a thank you, and say, "Rest well. I'll see you soon." Because gardening isn't just about plants, it's about faith. It's about believing that even in stillness, life continues. It's about caring for what's been given, season after season, year after year. And in that care, we find something of ourselves, patience, hope, and the quiet joy of watching life return again and again. Edna's story is a gentle reminder that no matter your age, your season, or the weather outside your window, there's always something growing in the soil, in the soul, or somewhere in between. The garden may look like it's sleeping, but it's dreaming in color of spring mornings, new blossoms, and the hands that will tend it once more. And when that time comes, the earth will remember your touch. If Edna's story or these simple fall garden hacks inspired you, give this video a like. It helps more gardeners find us. Share it with a friend who loves to grow, who finds beauty in the changing seasons, and who knows that life, like the garden, never truly stops blooming. And don't forget to subscribe to the Evergreen Seniors, where we celebrate wisdom, warmth, and the quiet magic of everyday living. Because here, every story, like every seed, matters.